Last fall, it was announced that Columbus Crew SC, which is the Major League Soccer club here in town, was going to be moving, or at least trying to move, to Austin, Texas. Since then, a lot of things have been said by a lot of different people, and there has been a large grassroots movement to, quote, save the crew and keep them in Columbus. I experienced most of these updates as headlines in my Facebook feed that I didn't do a good job of keeping track of. So I read about it, and now I'm making this video to bring myself and anyone else who's a bit confused up to date. Real quick, I just want to say that much of the reporting done for this video was done by Laura Newpoff of Columbus Business First, Andrew Erickson of Columbus Dispatch, and Kevin Little of Austin American Statesman. And all three of those publications have paywalls, so somebody owes me a beer. Just kidding, don't buy me a beer, but you should subscribe and support your local news outlets. All right, I think the best way to cover this whole thing is with a timeline of events, starting at October 17th, 2017, when the owner of the Crew, Anthony Precourt, released a statement saying that he's exploring the possibility of moving the club to Austin. This did not mean the team was moving for sure, but yeah, not a great sign. Precourt blamed this decision to explore his options on a lack of local support in the form of poor attendance and corporate sponsorships, and that he wasn't able to build a new stadium in downtown Columbus. All of this, the announcement itself and the pissiness about not having a stadium downtown, seemed to catch our mayor, Andy Ginther, as well as the CEO of the Columbus Partnership, Alex Fisher, off guard. I'm paraphrasing here, but Ginther and Fisher were basically like, "What the f are you talking about, Anthony?" Fisher immediately pointed out that Columbus business leaders had previously offered to buy half or all of the team at an independently valued price, had rallied additional sponsorship and corporate support, and had studied how and where a downtown stadium might be built, all prior to this announcement from Precourt. Side note, the Columbus Partnership is a group of 65 local CEOs who get together to make important economic decisions for the region. Almost like a Midwest Illuminati, except way more boring, and it actually exists. Alex Fisher leads that organization and is basically the super nice, smart, wholesome guy who we trust with a lot of important things in our community. I don't really know him, but he does come off very not slimy, if that makes sense, which is important because he's not an elected official, and again, we trust him with a lot of important stuff. Mayor Ginther responded to Precourt's announcement by pointing out that he and the city had received little to no communication from Precourt, and that he didn't even know this was coming until the announcement was made public. Precourt's announcement on the 17th did not surprise the MLS commissioner, Don Garber, who on the same day released a statement voicing his support for Precourt and cited the same talking points about the Crew's stadium situation and lack of local support. As a result of this surprising announcement, Crew fans freaked the f out. On October 22nd, several thousand Crew fans rallied downtown at City Hall, voicing their support for the team and lack of support, to put it mildly, for Precourt's new exploration. Local leaders and celebs spoke at the event, and it was basically everything you'd expect from a large group of people with a shared love for something who recently learned that they might be losing that something. Morgan Hughes organized the rally and proclaimed from the steps of City Hall, quote, "If you came here for a funeral, if you came here for a wake, you're in the wrong place. This is not over." Goosebumps. So at this point, you have the announcement from Precourt to potentially probably leave Columbus for Austin, support for Precourt from MLS's top brass, the surprised reactions from Columbus leaders, and a large and growing grassroots #SaveTheCrew movement started by the Crew's fan base. Let's keep going. Over the next few weeks, you would see Save the Crew support everywhere. Bars, cars, trucks, and other MLS stadiums, behind the set of College game day, and even in the stands of international contests abroad. Now, if you're not familiar with the MLS schedule, it's important to point out that Precourt's announcement did not happen during the offseason. In fact, on October 26th, the Crew entered the league's playoffs as a 5th seed in the Eastern Conference and went on a tear. They beat Atlanta in the knockout round, New York in the conference semis, and were one goal away from making it to another MLS Cup, but lost to the eventual MLS Cup champion, Toronto FC, at the end of November. As you would imagine, the home games for these playoff contests were an insane atmosphere. Obviously, the fans were showing support for the Crew, but also as a way to show Precourt and Garber and the rest of the country that Columbus is a fantastic place for an MLS club. C-R-E-W, fuck you, Precourt, we are the Crew. While the Crew were on that underdog playoff run, our Columbus duo from earlier in this video, Mayor Ginther and Alex Fisher, met with Precourt and Commissioner Garber in New York City on November 15th to discuss, I honestly don't know what they were supposed to talk about, but it did not go well. The statements released by the two groups after the meeting were so conflicting that it makes you wonder, which one of these guys were lying here? Ginther and Fisher said, quote, "We were disappointed and frustrated. We were united in putting all options on the table with the expectation in return that the MLS ownership would cease pursuing moving the team to Austin." But Precourt said, quote, "We were extremely disappointed that no concrete offer or proposal was presented." Again, that's the city saying all options were on the table and Precourt saying no options were on the table. So then Ginther and Fisher sent a public letter to Precourt on November 29th saying, "Actually, quote, as you recall, we shared 3 publicly owned sites for a potential new stadium in Columbus," close quote, and clap back. One of those sites presented was the Expo Center near the current stadium, which doesn't seem to be what Precourt claims to want. But the other 2 sites are both downtown city-owned riverfront properties. They are Berliner Park, just west of German Village, and Dodge Recreation Center, which is in Franklinton across the river from the Brewery District. So does it matter whose statement was more truthful after the meeting in New York? Not really, if the goal is just to end up with the Crew in Columbus, but I think it's worth pointing out that there does seem to be strikingly different levels of authenticity here. I'm saying one might infer that Precourt is being a bit disingenuous throughout this process. Side note, and speaking of disingenuous, I'm gonna jump ahead on our timeline real quick because I wanna point out that in a podcast published on January 25th, 2018, MLS Commish Garber shared that when Precourt purchased the Crew from the Hunt family, the MLS allowed a special escape clause in the contract saying that Precourt couldn't move the club unless it was to Austin, Texas. Also, and maybe more significantly, Garber shared in that same podcast that Precourt wasn't even confident in the Crew's long-term viability in Columbus when he bought the club. Man. All right, we've made it to December 7th into one of the craziest, most bizarre wrinkles in this story, and that's when Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine released a statement where he draws our attention to an Ohio law that states that a sports team owner can't move a team that has received financial assistance from the public without giving the city or a private buyer the chance to purchase the team at a reasonable price. Where the hell did that come from? Okay, do you guys remember Art Modell, or Art Modell as he was known in my house growing up? This Ohio law DeWine is referencing was passed in 1996 as a direct response to the baloney Art Modell pulled moving the Cleveland Browns to Baltimore. Now, at this point, DeWine isn't filing a suit. He's just saying, I've got a law and I'm not afraid to use it. Also, I'm running for governor. Please clap. All right, now we need to turn our attention to Austin, Texas. I've never been to Austin. Keep it weird, hook 'em horns, catch me at South by Texas, but it does seem like a pretty cool place. My cousin Travis lives there and he's a super cool dude. And a really interesting thing about Austin, Texas is that this winter, Austinites began speaking out against Precourt building a soccer stadium on the locations that Precourt desires most. According to the Columbus Dispatch, the 3 most viable locations for a new stadium in Austin are believed to be Butler Shores Metro Park, Roy Guerrero Park, and McCalla Place. So far, Austinites have protested the building of a new stadium on Butler Shores Metro Park, and as a result, Precourt removed that site from consideration on January 26th. That was his top pick for a place to build a new stadium. Then on February 27th, Austin Rec Department voted unanimously to have the Roy Guerrero Park removed from consideration after locals protested Precourt's interest in building there. And an 11-0 vote, even if it's non-binding, is no small message. The third property up for consideration is McCalla Place, but Austin City Council member Leslie Poole, who represents the district where McCalla Place is located, said she'd rather Precourt found a privately owned plot of land to build on, which he definitely would rather not do, or she said he'll have to finance the infrastructure improvements required around the McCalla Place property, which would obviously be super expensive for him to do. This is clearly not the come on down to Austin Precourt was likely expecting, but he's not giving up either. On March 1st, Precourt spoke publicly for the first time since October, and he reiterated his interest in moving the Crew to Austin, and that both Roy Guerrero Park and McCalla Place are still being considered as potential build sites for a stadium, as well as other undisclosed private properties closer to the downtown. He also made a claim that the move will benefit Austin in various ways and to the tune of $400 million. Our final update, unless something happens while I'm editing this, comes from the OG AG Mike DeWine, who announced on March 5th that the city of Columbus and the state of Ohio are in fact teaming up to file a lawsuit against Precourt and the MLS under that Art Modell law. The lawsuit alleges that the Crew has benefited from public funds in the form of parking lot improvements, property tax exemptions, below market lease rates for that property, and other infrastructure improvements around the stadium paid for or reimbursed with public funds. So here we are. We've made it to today. I don't know what will happen with that lawsuit. It's never been tested in the courts, and it could very well be deemed unconstitutional, but it is a law and it will be tested now. The Crew is still in Columbus, and their 2018 season started on March 3rd. What kind of season will it be? Do we treat the Crew like it's a friend who might move away, so we squeeze every ounce of enjoyment out of them before they go? Or is it like a girlfriend broke up with us, but she's staying in the apartment until the lease is up? In the longer run, and as I understand it, it looks like there are 3 potential outcomes here. First, Precourt and the city of Austin find a plot of land they're both happy with, and the Crew moves to Austin. This would mean the Crew is out of Columbus by 2020, and that would be a brutal outcome for Crew fans and the city of Columbus. A second option would be Precourt sells the franchise and the team stays in Columbus. This could be the result of the Art Modell law forcing Precourt's hand, or Precourt realizes he's stuck between a city who loves his team but loathes him, and a city who just doesn't have an ideal place for his stadium. This is also known as a rock and a hard place, and Precourt decides his best option is out. Also, I didn't mention this on our timeline, but in November, James Watt, who is the co-founder and CEO of BrewDog, offered to help purchase the team and then sell at least half of the team to Crew fans, which is wild to think about. Quick side note, BrewDog is like the Sam Adams of the UK, and they recently made Columbus its US headquarters. A third option would be, you ready? A lot of people swallow their pride, and we, Precourt, the city, the fan base, make it work in Columbus. This is a tough one to envision because it wouldn't be easy for everyone to swallow their pride, but it might be worth it because keeping the Crew with an imperfect owner is undefinably better than losing the Crew completely. Let me know if I got anything wrong here or left anything important out, and I'll share that feedback in a follow-up video this Friday. To make sure you see that video, please be sure to like my Facebook page and or subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks, guys.